welcome to the Earth Feels podcast.
I'm Rose.
And I'm Christine.
Welcome to Earth Feels, the podcast for people feeling overwhelmed by the endlessly gloomy climate news.
Where every week we have soul-based conversations about climate change and explore the idea that climate change may be happening for us as much as it is happening to us.
If you are ready to shift your focus and secure the future for our kids and our grandkids, then this is the podcast for you.
And yes, we do know how to spell. In today's episode, we talk about some of our favorite ways to make the holidays less about consumerism and more about the reason for the season, connecting with family and friends and compassion. But because the UN climate talks are ongoing in Madrid, we do spend the first 13 and a half minutes giving a recap of COP25. So if you are just interested in talking about the holidays, skip to 13 and a half minutes. Now let's get started.
How can we make our holidays more eco-friendly? As we're all running around like chickens with our heads cut off, trying to get everything done that we can get done in this month. Thanksgiving was later in the U.S. this year. It's always the fourth Thursday, but this year that was actually the 28th. And so there's a shorter time period between Christmas and Thanksgiving. So I don't know about everybody else, but I'm feeling the pressure to get a lot more done or get the same amount done and maybe with a week less time to do it. So, but before we get started on talking about the eco holidays, what we can do to make to be more environmentally friendly to this holiday season, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on with COP25.
Yes.
Or COP25, which is what I would say, but
it's COP25, but Rose always does what she wants. So it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just not the usual way of referring to it.
Okay.
But it certainly is still easier than saying Conference of the Parties.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely
So,
that's true.
The day we're recording this, there is still 5 days left.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the week that the bigwigs come in, right? So the heads of state show up this week. I think last week was kind of see what can be accomplished, a lot of negotiating, but this week they're going to come in and try to draw some lines in the sand about what's actually going to happen before COP or COP26, which was the goal from the Paris Agreement to have emissions be at its peak by COP26 and be starting to draw down. And right now we are still adding emissions every day.
Mm-hmm. So have we ever defined what the Paris Agreement is? We refer to it.
I don't think we have. No, okay, that would be a good thing to put up.
That was COP. So it was in 2015. So that would be COP21.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in Paris. When the same countries, 195, sat around the table and really, for the first time, came to an agreement that recognized the seriousness of climate change and set achievable goals to reduce carbon emissions. Now,
achievable by whose standards? I guess is what is the question.
I guess the emphasis should be on the parties got together and agreed in principle to work together. I think my understanding is that was the big breakthrough. Before that, it was like a family get together where everybody's just squabbling about who's got the bigger piece of the pie, and nobody was willing to listen. And there was more listening that happened in Paris. So that was 4 years ago. And 2020 is a year away. The meeting's going to be in Glasgow.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, there's supposed to be some very concrete targets and drawdown. Well, lowering of emissions targets and decisions made. And so this was a significant, being that it's the year before COP26, it was supposed to be a significant meeting, and has it been? I mean, we're only halfway through, and like you said, this is when the bigwigs come.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll see. I mean, Angela Merkel from Germany has really been a leader on addressing climate change internationally. Certainly Emmanuel Macron and Angela Merkel were important in the negotiations in Paris.
So where is it right now? Do you know? I heard Greta talk yesterday, or maybe it was Friday, about the fact that they've been striking for a year and they feel like there's not a sense of urgency. I know that there's a couple of things that they're hung up on at the meeting right now. One of which is the bigger countries, or the more developed countries, are, including the US, of course, are pushing back and saying that they don't want to be on the hook for paying for all the carbon offset, or all the carbon.
Basically the climate impacts. So is it I thought it was just the US. Are there other countries that are included in that?
I haven't seen specifically who it is. What I read was it was the developing country, or the more developed countries, the first world countries, or I don't even know what the term is for that.
I understand this is being led by the Trump administration to be off the hook for all of the upcoming cost of the impact of climate change on developing countries, which have done significantly, hugely less to cause this issue. And so the Trump administration is trying to basically have their cake and eat it too. Pull out of the accord, but kind of leave with a nasty little twist to the story, which is we're leaving and you can't come after us for all of the problems that you're going to be having because of our industrial activity over the last 150 years.
So is that just the States, though? I was assuming that China was a big part of that as well, because China's, China, I think the US is number 2. China's number 1 in terms of the carbon output.
I thought historically the US is definitely greater than China. This article from a climate blog website called Heated.
I like her.
Have you read her before?
Yes. Yeah. She was a climate journalist who basically left her job to start this. And it's been free up until now, but she's going to start having a paywall. She said, it was something I was reading the other day. She was saying she was pretty nervous about that, but she really has some great information. I think her name is Emily something.
Atkin. We should do a shout out to Emily.
The blog is Heated.
What it says is a source at the UN climate talks sent her a photograph of a proposal being voted by the Trump administration's diplomatic team. Surrounding
diplomatic, yeah.
The proposal surrounds the problem of loss and damage, which refers to the unavoidable, this is a quote, and irreversible impacts of climate change where mitigation has failed and adaptation is not possible. And what she says, so it is specifically the US. The US is now attempting to add further protections for itself and fossil fuel companies against liability claims into the complex web of international climate negotiations. So if it's proposed, basically the countries least responsible for the crisis but suffering the most have even less chance of having financial compensation.
Well, there's an article that I'm looking at too from the BBC, and it said richer countries were supposed to undertake specific carbon cutting action in the years 2015 to 2020, which many of them yet haven't achieved. Here in Madrid, a group of countries, including China, India, and Saudi Arabia, are pushing for these 2020 commitments to be adhered to, even if it means achieving them post-2020. So they're saying that there's a frustration that countries are focusing on trying to get advantages in the talk instead of coming together.
Oh, I have no doubt that is happening.
Yeah. So so I'm sure the US is in there. I'm just not sure if they're the only one.
This specific proposal
Okay,
definitely comes
Yep.
from the U.S.
Mhm.
diplomatic team, and they're using a specific term. They are referring to WIM, the Warsaw International Mechanism for Loss and Damage, which was established by the UN in 2013, so that rich countries that are most responsible for the climate crisis could help financially support poorer countries. And they're specifically targeting that. So the UN climate talks is focused on how to fix this Warsaw mechanism so that the most vulnerable people on the planet don't have to pay for billions in climate damages. But the US's proposal directly addresses that. And here's a quote from Heated. The US is using the opportunity to make changes to the way the WIM, which is that Warsaw mechanism, is governed to cover its own back and keep developing countries hit by climate disasters mired in debt and poverty.
We're such good guys.
Yeah, heavy sigh. I mean, Canada's no better, and if we were a bigger clout globally, I'm sure we would be the same. But that's sort of where we're at internationally, and that's why the climate crisis is a symptom of what has to change, because it's true that internationally there's been a lot of bad behavior you look at Britain when it was the global superpower, and it has a lot of sins that it has never really reckoned with. And China, of course, is an emerging superpower, and it's
committing a lot of sins as we speak.
Yes.
Yep.
And the U.S. has its list of sins. So unless we have this global consciousness shift that recognizes truly, as the Bible says, that what we do to the least of our brothers and sisters, we do to ourselves. That's where we're going, or we're just not going to be around.
Well, it will be interesting this week because as the leaders come in, as the heads of state come in, and they're going to be pressured more there were 500,000 people that took to the streets in Madrid on Friday. So that was pretty incredible. But there's also this week, the EU Commission is due to present a European Green Deal.
Which is very exciting.
Yes. And so I wonder how that will reverberate in Madrid. So big news on the front. Yeah. I would like it if my heart felt lighter right now after last week, but never say never, right?
I wonder if we should do a little update at the end of the week, just a little 10-minute chat at the end of POP.
Sure, that'd be great. Let's commit to that. See what happens. I mean, I'm watching it, Googling it several times a day, and it's so frustrating to me that this is not part of our mainstream media. And I had just actually posted something the other day. I've got onto Google Alerts and put in like Sydney fires, COP25, because otherwise it's just not out there. And I can spend too much time researching, but at least if I get an alert, then at the end of the day, I can check on these 5 stories instead of having to search for them.
That will keep you busy for a while.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. But thankfully, Google Alerts. I mean, it's just a great resource.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So we need to talk about
the holidays.
Holidays.
Yay! So, what are you doing to make your holiday more eco-friendly, Christine? Let's take it down to a personal level and talk about what we're doing.
Okay. Well, as you know, I was a little late to our recording session because I was so busy with my glue gun and my greens that I salvaged from somebody who left them on a boulevard that I noticed in my walk earlier this week.
Good for you.
So, yay me. My situation this year, because normally I actually don't need to buy any holiday decorations because I have them at the home that I've lived in for 20 years, but we're now spending this December in a different place on Vancouver Island. And so my challenge is, what am I going to do? I love Christmas. I want to make things Christmassy. Our daughters are coming here for Christmas. And how am I going to make it Christmassy when, number one, there's no snow outside? And number two, I don't have any of my ornaments for the tree, which I don't know about you. Do you have like ornaments that your kids made in?
Yeah, I have I have a Santa collection,
Oh,
which is, yeah, I have 3 trunks filled with
oh,
Santa stuff. And I hadn't been here the last 2 years. I'd been in California. The year before, we all went to Kauai for Christmas. So I hadn't opened those boxes in 4 years. And I got to tell you, there's more boxes someplace else because I'm missing a bunch of stuff. But my whole tree is Santa. So I collected them over the years. Some of them are, my boys were into when they both wanted to be firemen when they were 3 and they wanted to be baseball players. So I've got all those kind of Santas. So yeah,
that they made or that you?
that they some that I bought, some that they made. The oldest one I have is Connor. My youngest was born December 8th. Happy birthday, Connor. And the little boy across the street that was like 6 months old, his mom bought this little, like a rattle that's a Santa that if you pushed it, it had a light, the nose, it lit up and played some kind of Santa music. And I still have that. I just sent her a message about that.
Oh, cute.
That yeah. So it's kind of a mixture. It's kind of a hodgepodge. I have given my boys, because they're separate from me now. I have given them a bunch of the ornaments that they had, all sports figures and that kind of stuff on the tree. So, but yeah, it's fun to open the boxes and just go through, and everything has a memory, right?
So now
At least in my house.
Because I don't have those this year.
Okay, sorry.
No, you haven't had those for the last 2 years. You said this is the first year.
This is the first in 4. Yeah. So
okay.
yeah.
So Christmas is about being sentimental too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess for us, our family has, putting the decorations aside, which I would like you to post a picture of your Santa tree with.
Okay. Well, we got a small tree this year.
Okay.
And I have way too many ornaments on it.
All right. So now she's confessed that it's not as gorgeous as it usually is, but we'll still admire it. And I am going to post. I've been focusing on our front door. I'm not quite sure why, but I got a wreath at Valley Village.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's reused, but it's glued with pine cones and nuts and little bits of, I guess, artificial greenery, or and little white ferns and stuff. And I thought it was actually kind of attractive. So that's been hanging on my front door. And then my husband trimmed some of our trees the other day, so I took that greenery and put it in a vase. And then there was the gnome that I was wrestling with all morning.
Yeah, that you have to put a picture of, because that's really cute.
So we'll put a picture of my front door. And then I've just taken some Christmas lights and hung them over. We have a natural gas fireplace, so I've hung it over.
So will you do a tree, or you won't do a tree?
No, I'm not going to. No, I've because I don't have any decorations.
Because you don't have the ornaments, yeah.
Yeah, so I've got a poinsettia and a real one. So I don't know, it feels Christmassy to me. And if I put on Christmas music, and I've also, they're still in the oven, but I've been dehydrating sliced lemons and limes and oranges that I'm going to hang on strings. And I'm not.
Oh, I bet the house smells great.
Yeah. But besides ornaments, for Mark's extended family, we exchange names, and we've probably been doing this maybe almost 10 years already. So we still exchange names. Mark's sister and her husband live in New Mexico, and we're in Ontario, and Mark's family's in Manitoba. But we get together via Zoom or Skype on Christmas. And what we do is whatever name you get, you make a donation to a charity that is something that they would appreciate, and try and make it as personal as possible. And so like my brother-in-law fixes bike. That's one of his hobbies, and he volunteers his time. And so I know that donations have been made to the charity that he helps support by his donating his time. And obviously it's pretty obvious for me, people can donate to climate change organizations and that sort of thing. So I love that time that we connect and people open their card and get to read what
What
donations.
charity?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about you?
So yeah, we still do some stuff. I have two boys who are the boys who never shop for themselves. So at Christmas time, they'll be like, "Mom, I need shoes. I need." So there's those kind of, they're more like needs. Um, but we're more into experiences as well. So gift certificates to like Amtrak and things that they can use as opposed to stuff to have, right? I'm a big baker at Christmas time. I make my heritage is Italian, so I do pizzelles, and make. I spend a couple days in the kitchen doing those and giving them out for Christmas gifts. My
What
kids,
are those? Do tell
they,
me.
they look like waffles, but they're thin, and they taste like anise. They're kind of so a little bit of that licorice kind of flavor. They're a traditional Italian cookie, and I've been making them for many, many years. And so Connor actually said to me this year, "I'm going to really miss those." And I'm like, "Well, what kind of mom would I be if I didn't send them to you? You know, I'm going to.
What kind of
I've
a
always
mom are you
I've
going to be?
I've always mailed them to you in the past. Why would you think that you wouldn't get them this year?" But I guess he's right in that the last 2 years I've been in California with them, so it's been easier for me to just make them. But this year I'll have to mail them. So
Better get on it.
yeah, got to get on it.
Mhm. So, are you willing to share your recipe?
Oh, I certainly could put the
Oh,
recipe up there. Yep,
and
yep,
I'd
yep.
like a picture too.
Okay, all right. Well, that means that I have to get some baked before we put this up this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's actually in the queue for things that are happening this week. And then my partner and I, James and I, we both we have too much stuff, right? So it's like we're trying to downsize as much as possible. So we're looking at going to different kinds of shows and stuff. We went to actually yesterday, just went to see Dr. Dolittle as the Christmas show at the local theater, the local theater production. So we went to see that yesterday, and then we've got another show that we're going to see the week of Christmas.
Nice.
And actually, I texted him at work today, and I said, "And here's something that I want to see. It's not till May, but tickets for this would be good." So getting tickets to see Monica Lewinsky is coming to
Ooh,
talk about shame. Yeah, want to see that.
interesting.
Yeah, so I think those kinds of things, I mean, they create memories as opposed to just one more pair of socks for your sock drawer.
Mm-hmm.
It is nice to have something to open, but I think little small things in a Christmas stocking or.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And even when my husband and I were saying, okay, so the flights, the girls, we bought them their flights, that will be their Christmas gift. And Mark said, I know you're going to buy them some other stuff. I said, just little things, and
Yeah.
and that's just what we do. But we do have some traditional baking as well. And by traditional, I mean for our family. So the girls have already messaged me to say, we're hoping we're going to be making white chocolate cranberry pistachio bark.
Ooh, lovely.
Ooh, it's really good. Even the one daughter who said to me, "Well, I don't really want to eat any sweets this year, and I know, Mom, you're eating low carb, so you don't want to eat sweets." And I'm like, "Oh, it's Christmas, and there will be goodies." And I said, "But nobody will be holding a gun to anybody's head." And she says, "Yes, but I have no willpower." But and I make white chocolate apricot biscotti. There's an
Oh,
Italian.
yum.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'll be making those, and I'm happy to share a recipe or two if people want. But I don't know. I know my husband likes caramel corn popcorn, but he hasn't mentioned it, and I'm thinking I'm not going to bring it up if he because
because it's too much work or because it's high in calories.
it definitely doesn't qualify for not sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see if he decides that it's something he needs to have, then we'll make it. But it hasn't come up so far. The girls have been letting me know what they would like to do. But and we have, when they're here, we've booked, if you ever come to Victoria, Rose, one of the things that Victorians like to do, sort of connected to the British heritage, which Victoria has more than many other places in Canada, is afternoon tea.
Oh, I've been to the Empress.
Yes. So
Mhm,
we are
mhm.
not going to the Empress. We're going to a little White Heather tea room that's just around the corner
Mm-hmm.
from our place. So that has been requested and reserved as well. So
Oh, that's a nice tradition. That's a nice tradition. And on the same token, if you're looking for ideas, I mean, you certainly could cook dinner for a friend or a family, or um, do some housekeeping for somebody else, or babysitting for somebody else. All those kinds of services that people have to pay dearly for
mhm. And are
seem
so appreciated.
so appreciated, so appreciated. Yeah, yeah.
I
It's
know.
when you have the kids around, it's a little bit harder because they want the latest and greatest. But I was reading a story the other day that I thought was from a teacher that writes a blog, and she was saying that at the end of when all the kids come back to school after Christmas, and she asks them what their holidays were about, it's what they all talk about is the time that they spent with their family, when everybody sat around reading, when everybody sang songs, when they played games, when they were outside in the snow together. Most of them are not really talking about the latest toy that they got. So,
Yeah, and I don't know why that's hard for our culture to understand. Maybe because it's pushed on us, because spend. It's that whole consumer economy that we've been brainwashed into thinking is the road to happiness, and economic, thriving, and it's not. So I think my sense is that more and more people are choosing just to make it simpler. Like the whole minimalist movement is about just simplifying, and certainly I would say that we do a minimalist leaning Christmas, but we love do puzzles together. We'll play games. We'll watch like A Christmas Carol on Christmas Eve, and we'll watch It's a Wonderful Life on December 25th, on Christmas Day, and that sort of thing. And we actually have sushi um, on Christmas Eve. That's become our tradition. And
wow.
yeah.
Yep.
Mark and the girls make good sushi, and at some point we'll make ravioli. Although we don't have a pasta maker here, so I'm not sure how we're going to do that this year. But yeah.
Yeah, It's a Wonderful Life. We always watch that on Christmas Eve. Actually, two Christmases ago, when I was staying in California, the little theater on Coronado actually plays it in
Oh,
the theater on Christmas morning. And I had never seen it on big screen before. It is my all-time favorite movie.
did
So
you
got
go?
to see that. Got to see it. It was packed. I mean, it's a small theater. I think it's called the Vintage Theater on Orange Avenue in Coronado, California. But they play it every Christmas, and I was like, oh my God, this is like a dream come true.
Oh, lovely. Well, and I know some people, not our family. Some people make it a tradition to go out and serve Christmas dinner to.
Hmm.
Um,
Actually, that's what James and I are going to do this year. Our
oh,
family is far flung, and he's got sisters and nieces and stuff that are a couple of hours north, but that means 2 hours north and 2 hours back, and just seems like a lot on Christmas Day. So we just called. I had just seen a flyer for there's a meal that's being served for the community. It's not. I think it's open to anybody that doesn't have family or whatever, and we're going to serve from 2 to 4 on Christmas Day. So that'll be nice. Just a nice change. I mean, it's nice to be out and celebrating with other people, and otherwise we'd be alone. But it makes it more festive, I think, when there are other people. But just being in community and smelling all those good smells and serving people, that seems like what Christmas should be about.
Sounds lovely. Do we have any good news?
Yeah, well, so the good news this week, getting back to the COP, 2025, is 500,000 people took to the streets of Madrid to protest for change. Can we keep up the momentum? Because it's great that we're doing it up until the COP25, but we have to. Anybody who's an activist knows you've got to be in it for the long haul. It's just not like you come to a cliff and you fall off. You just got to keep going. So I was really heartened to that. Obviously, we talked about the EU Green Deal, and then Bloomberg came out with this thing this week. It's called the American Pledge, and it was he's actually going to be down in Madrid later in the week.
He being Michael
Bloomberg is going, yes. And this American Pledge is something that he and Jerry Brown, who was the governor of California for a number of different times, they came up with this coalition kind of in support of the Paris Agreement. So I'll just read you this real quick. It says, as Bloomberg and Brown explained in the report, in the 2 years since Trump announced his intention to withdraw the United States from the Paris Agreement, nearly 4,000 U.S. cities, states, businesses, and universities have reaffirmed their commitment to helping America drive down emissions and answer the call of the international community to continue leading the global fight against the climate crisis. So the Americans Pledge Coalition represents 68% of the U.S. GDP, 65% of the U.S. population, and 51% of all U.S. emissions. So it's not a small thing. We might not have the Trump administration in support of this, but Americans we're still in. So that's good news.
Yes, and there was also an announcement of a high-profile celebrity initiative. It's your former Secretary of State, John Kerry.
It is. It's Kerry. Yep. And I don't know how many other people have joined in with him. Yes.
Well, information also about John Kerry's initiative, because there were a number of high-profile celebrities as well as part of that. So that is really good news. And our action step, is it related to an eco holiday?
Yeah, I think take a look at, can you buy one less thing? And can you can you bake something for somebody? Can you shovel somebody's walkway? Can you make a gift certificate for a weekend of, maybe a weekend's too long, of babysitting, a night of babysitting.
Let's not overwhelm everybody.
Yep.
Yeah. And for our sanity tip, again, in keeping with the frenetic busyness of the season, can carve out a couple of hours one evening. I mean, it would be nice if it was a whole day where you just unplug from the busyness, and maybe you, if listening to Christmas carols or holiday music relaxes you, then put that on. If it just stresses you out, then just turn off the music, turn off the news, and
allow yourself to enjoy the reason for the season.
Exactly. So we will be back on Saturday, December 14th, for a special post-COP 25 quick update from Eaarth Feels. And thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
That's this week's episode of Eaarth Feels. Special thanks to singer-songwriter Kristen Hoffman for generously allowing us to use Song for the Ocean. Thanks for listening.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play so you don't miss an episode. Catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Children of the earth, I'm calling out. There's a mission for you and for me. You see, your mother, she has been suffering, and the truth is told beneath the sea. So raise your voice